Watch out with the heat for the microphone. No, for hitting the table.
Aktivnost u okviru Erasmus projekta koji radi Centar za učenje, Bolji MI, saradnji sa Biznis inkubatorom i Univerzitetom Singidunum. Naš projekat se zove Budućnost obrazovanja iz primjene veštačke inteligencije i na tu temu će i danas Jorge, koji je iz Španije, inače je trener u Erasmus Learning Academy, pričat će vam o tome, znači na koji način možemo da iskoristimo etički veštačku inteligenciju i implementiramo je u nastavu. Hvala vam i izvolite Garcia.
So, good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes. I'm Jorge Garcia. She just introduced me. First of all, I would like to show an incredible amount of gratitude to the Center for Innovative Learning, Better Me and Better We, that they invited me to participate in the framework of this Erasmus project. Okay. Also, I would like to extend my gratitude to this beautiful Kruševac Business Incubator and of course to the University of Singidunum.
Dobar dan svima, prije svega da se predstavim, ja sam Jorge Garcia i želio bih da iskažem svoju zahvalnost institutu Better Me, Better We, koji me je pozvao da vam održim ovo predavanje. Također bih želeo i da izrazim svoju zahvalnost timu Biznis inkubatora u Kruševcu, koji me je pozvao da budem ovdje danas sa vama i da vam pružim ovu prezentaciju. Hvala vam za vašu ljubaznost.
So, I guess if you are all here, it's not the first time that you hear about artificial intelligence. Hopefully, it's not the first time that you hear about artificial intelligence, but in any case, we're going to do a bit of an introduction on what is artificial intelligence. ChatGPT is artificial intelligence, but it's only artificial intelligence, and where does it come from? This concept, this idea.
Pretpostavljam da svima koji ste došli ovde nije prvi put da se susreću sa veštačkom inteligencijom i da imate neko znanje o veštačkoj inteligenciji. Međutim, ipak ću vam pružiti neki uvod o zapravo istorijatu veštačke inteligencije i ChatGPT-u koji je također spada u veštačku inteligenciju, pa ćemo malo proći kroz postanak veštačke inteligencije.
And for not only introducing the concept that I know that you know, but to talk about what are we going through on artificial intelligence right now. I took a quote by Bill Gates, extremely famous, extremely known co-founder of Microsoft, that reads that the development of AI is as fundamental as the creation of the internet, of the microprocessor, the personal computer, the mobile phone. It's gonna change the way in which people work. It's gonna change the way in which people travel, learn, etc. And entire industries, education being one of them, I can add that to the quote, are gonna have to change surrounding it. Okay?
Dakle, verovatno ste upoznati sa konceptom veštačke inteligencije, tako da nećemo puno o tome, ali mogli bismo da krenemo sa citiranjem Bill Gatesa, koji je rekao da će se razvoj veštačke inteligencije kao fundamentalnu kreaciju, stvaranje zapravo mikroprocesora, kompjutera, interneta i mobilnih telefona, da će to promeniti način na koji ljudi uče, rade, uče, putuju, leče se i međusobno komuniciraju. Čitave industrije će se preorijentisati oko tog koncepta veštačke inteligencije i razni biznisi će međusobno praviti razliku po tome koliko dobro se služe veštačkom inteligencijom.
So, we are not talking anymore about any kind of niche technology. We're not talking about any kind of technology that is being used in really specific fields for a really specific thing. This new advance in the development of artificial intelligence, and we will talk about later about generative AI, that is the one that it's stepping into the world, making a huge revolution. We will see that artificial intelligence being a concept that is 70 years old as it is, right now is going to change or is already changing mobility, the way in which we use a car. It's changing the way in which we do logistics with trucks. It's going to change the health sector, for example, the discovery of the treatment for sicknesses. And of course, eventually, and I say eventually in between quotes, education, it's going to be affected by artificial intelligence. We're talking about personalized learning. We're talking about AI tutors. We're talking about the idea of assessment in artificial intelligence. But we're also going to talk about the challenges and the risks of all of this innovation on education.
Dakle, ovo nije znači više neka skrajnuta tehnologija koja se bavi samo u okviru, kojom se služimo u okviru specifičnih polja. Ona je jako napredovala, istupila je i govorit ćemo kasnije i o generativnoj veštačkoj inteligenciji koja istupa u svet i čini veliku revoluciju. Ona je stara nekih 70 godina unazad, koncept veštačke inteligencije, međutim sada ona utiče na sve sfere, menja mobilnost, imamo je u primjeni kod vozila, dakle automatizacija vozila, dakle transporta, upravljanje, navigacija veštačkom inteligencijom, ima utiče na način na koji se lečimo, dakle primenjena je u medicini i ono što je jako bitno, primenjena je u obrazovanju, imamo dakle personalizovano učenje, personalizovane vidove učenja, imamo tutore za učenje u vidu veštačke inteligencije i danas ćemo dakle govoriti o tim konceptima.
This image that we have here on the screen, it's a super classic infographic that is being used for talking about artificial intelligence. But when we talk about artificial intelligence, we're talking about what we refer as an umbrella term. It's a term that identifies any technology that imitates the human intelligence.
Dakle, ovaj grafikon jasno pokazuje na što se odnosi veštačka inteligencija, ali moramo samo da pojasnimo da termin veštačka inteligencija se zapravo odnosi na jedan široki pojam koji pod čiju kapu, hajde da kažemo, ili koju obuhvata različite tehnologije koje su sposobne da imitiraju ljudsku inteligenciju. To je, da kažemo, neki koncept, stari koncept koji objašnjava veštačku inteligenciju.
We're talking about a concept, just so we are on the same page about it, that was first introduced by Alan Turing in the 50s. So we're talking about a science that is not new. It might feel new because we're talking about something that generative AI, for example, has been with us for what, the last 4, 5, 6 years. But this idea of artificial intelligence later on went into the development or created the idea of machine learning. That is, if I give a huge amount of information to a machine, I'm gonna be able to, the machine is gonna be able to identify patterns and through those patterns make predictions.
Kada govorimo o veštačkoj inteligenciji, to je stari koncept koji je još tokom 50. godina prošlog veka stvorio Alan Turing, a koja je kasnije dovela do koncepta mašinskog učenja, koje podrazumeva da ukoliko mi mašinama pružimo podatke, one mogu naučiti pomoću algoritama, mogu učiti iz tih podataka na osnovu identifikacije obrazaca i identifikujući obrazce mogu da stvore neka predviđanja.
From machine learning, we can go a bit deeper, we go forward in time, we have deep learning. That is the idea of, with the increase of processing power that we have now, in later years, we can be talking about 70s, 80s, more or less. What we have there is now the ability to imitate the neural system of the human brain, taking deeper decisions, making more predictions per moment, okay? One example, super famous example of that era, of this era, it's, for example, the idea of Deep Blue, that it was really famous at the time, okay? I think it was against Kasparov. Chess is not my best, but the idea of Deep Blue as a machine able to predict movements against the best chess player in the world.
Okay. Dakle, iz ovog mašinskog učenja smo došli do, da kažemo, dubljeg koncepta u primjeni veštačke inteligencije koji se zove duboko učenje. To je na dubljem nivou učenje mašine koje zapravo imitira neurološki sistem ljudskog mozga i taj proces dolazi od mogućnosti, odnosno od moći gigantskog obima obrade podataka i koji na osnovu toga može da zapravo čini neka predviđanja. S obzirom na to, na primjer, najbolji primjer toga je program Deep Blue, koji je uspeo da predvidi, koji je napravljen za igranje šaha uz pomoć veštačke inteligencije i koji je uspeo da predvidi poteze u šahu Kasparova sa kojim je bio testiran.
Then from there we do our last jump until today, because we have in the middle something historically called a bit of like the winter of AI, that we don't have new important developments on AI, and with, well, several things that we can talk about in the last 10-15 years, for example, the appearance of self-driving cars, or for example, and we will talk about virtual intelligence, the idea of, for example, AI assistants, for example, Siri could be a virtual intelligence, or the development of virtual intelligence in video games, for example, okay? But we shouldn't confuse and we will continue after translation, virtual intelligence with generative AI. Okay?
Okay. Znači, mi istorijski imamo jedan period koji se naziva zima veštačke inteligencije, gdje je malo, da kažemo, oslabilo interesovanje za veštačku inteligenciju, pa smo napravili jedan skok na poslednjih 10-15 godina gdje se ona primenjuje u, recimo, autoindustriji za, da kažemo, bespilotne automobile koji se kreću pomoću navigacije. Zatim imamo takođe i veliku popularnost je steklo primenom virtualnih asistenata, ali ne bi trebalo nikako da mešamo virtualnu asistenciju i generativnu veštačku inteligenciju.
So, for example, when we're talking about generative AI, that it can be your ChatGPT, your Midjourney, your Gemini, any kind of model that is focused on generating, it's important to point out that we are not creating. First of all, generation and creation are two different concepts. We are not the capability of creating something absolutely new. So far it's only human, and it will continue to be human, but the idea of generating content through taking different pieces from a bit from here, a bit from here, out of the huge amount of information that they have, it's these new applications that we are seeing now, or ChatGPT, our DeepSeek, or Copilot, for example.
Dakle, imamo sledeći koncept, znači da objasnimo zapravo šta podrazumeva generativna veštačka inteligencija, kao što je Gemini i slično. Ono što moramo da naglasimo na početku je da to nije kreativni program, zapravo ne stvara ništa, nije stvaralački, ništa novo taj program ne može stvoriti iz podataka koje posjeduje, jer je ta stvaralačka energija i dalje ostaje u ljudskoj moći i tako će i biti. Međutim, generativna inteligencija, veštačka inteligencija ima sposobnost da prikuplja mnogo podataka sa mnogo strana i da ih generiše, u tom smislu se i koristi. I bitno je pomenuti, dakle, da ona može da generiše potpuno nasumično ljudske misli, odnosno ljudska zapažanja.
So, with those concepts, let's say, in mind, and having done a bit of a walkthrough or when we were and where we are right now on artificial intelligence, if we talk about artificial intelligence and education, we have the results of a report from Microsoft Education that tell us that in 2023, so this report probably now we can be talking about even a bigger result, 68% of educators important to point out, reference centers on AI, 68% of the educators were using AI at least once, with 62% of the students already using it at least once. And when we talk about leaders of education, we can put that number into 74%, which means 3 out of 4 teachers in the referential centers in USA, in this case, are already using artificial intelligence at least once in the classroom.
Dakle, sa tim konceptima o veštačkoj inteligenciji, dakle, ako pričamo o primjeni u obrazovanju, možemo da pomenemo i neke statistike koje se tiču obrazovanja i primjene veštačke inteligencije. Dakle, prema izveštaju o obrazovanju Microsofta iz 2023. 68% obrazovnih radnika i 62% učenika su već koristili barem jednom veštačku inteligenciju sa, da kažemo, značajnom dnevnom upotrebom među liderima u obrazovnoj industriji, gde je oko 47% koristilo. Takođe, prema organizaciji UNESCO iz 2023. manje od 10% škola i univerziteta imaju formalne vodiče za upotrebu veštačke inteligencije.
And yet, according to UNESCO, in a document out of a meeting that we will talk about in a second, less than 10% of schools and universities, education centers, are offering formal guidance on AI, both for teachers and for students.
Dakle, ovo manje od 10% škola koje imaju, univerzitete koje imaju formalne vodiče, se odnosi i jednako i na obrazovne radnike i na učenike.
So, we're gonna talk about what's the world doing about artificial intelligence on education, what's Europe planning and already doing about artificial intelligence, and we're going to talk briefly about Serbia, we're going to talk briefly about Spain, because we are pretty par on that part, okay?
Dakle, sada ćemo razgovarati o tome šta svet radi na temu upotrebe veštačke inteligencije i šta Evropa priprema i radi na tom polju.
So, UNESCO already in 2021 had prepared a series of AI ethics recommendations, okay, ethical recommendations for how should we apply artificial intelligence in education. I think this quote, it's not only important for education, I think it's important for labor, I think it's important for health, I think it's important for literally our world on relation with AI. That is, we have to make AI work for us and not allow artificial intelligence to end up being something that we have to adapt for, something that we have to work for. Okay?
Dakle, sada ćemo pomenuti i preporuke za etičku upotrebu veštačke inteligencije od strane UNESCO, gde se obrađuju, da kažemo, ključni izazovi koji se tiču etike, koji osiguravaju da će veštačka inteligencija služiti humanosti, a ne da se prilagoditi se ljudskim potrebama, a ne da se mi prilagođavamo veštačkoj inteligenciji.
So, in 2021, we have the Beijing consensus happening. We have more than 500 international representatives from more than 100 countries meeting to say, what are we going to do with our students? What are we going to do with our education regarding artificial intelligence?
Dakle, imamo pekinški konsenzus gde se okupilo preko 100 zemalja i mnogo učesnika koji su diskutovali o tome šta ćemo mi raditi i na koji način se postaviti prema upotrebi veštačke inteligencije.
They came up with a document, the Beijing Consensus, that presented 3 main ideas that we will see in our main document, and I will explain later why it's the main document about artificial intelligence right now. That is, first of all, we have to be able to have an ethical and transparent use of artificial intelligence?
Dakle, oni su na kraju kao rezultat tog sastanka imali dokument koji je sadržao 3 glavne ideje u tom, da kažemo, glavnom dokumentu, i prva od njih je bila biti osposobljen zapravo za etičku upotrebu veštačke inteligencije.
Because what we have to protect, yes or yes, is the privacy of our students. Of course.
Jer pre svega treba da zaštitimo privatnost naših učenika.
So, point number 2. Countries have to be in a position of power to create strong policies and to create clear rules on the use of artificial intelligence, both for education or for any other field, particularly of education in this case, in their own countries.
Dakle, drugo pravilo je da zemlje moraju biti u poziciji da imaju moć da naprave jasne regulacije i pravila o upotrebi veštačke inteligencije i u obrazovanju i u drugim oblastima, ali pre svega u obrazovnom sistemu.
And of course, they came to the of the third and most important, I would say, for the people in this room. We have to be able to empower educators. Educators shouldn't be in a situation in which AI is an obscure, mysterious tool that they don't know how it works, where information goes, or not being able to properly explain how to use safely the artificial intelligence to their students.
Došli smo do treće tačke koja se već implementira, a to je kako osnažiti i obrazovati zapravo, da kažemo, prosvetne radnike, odnosno radnike koji će obrazovati ostale nastavnike kojima je potrebna obuka i podrška za korišćenje, efektivno korišćenje veštačke inteligencije i kako bi pružili jasne smjernice svojim učenicima kako ne bi bili, da kažemo, u nekom nedostatku ili kako ne bi lutali u mraku nepoznavanja koncepta veštačke inteligencije.
So, 3 years later, the European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act is born. On 13th of March of last year, the European Union was the first international organism to create some kind of regulatory legislative framework around artificial intelligence.
Dakle, nakon 3 godine od ovog pekinškog konsenzusa imali smo u martu prošle godine po prvi put situaciju da je u Evropi donet nekakav regulatorni i zakonodavni sistem koji propisuje upotrebu veštačke inteligencije.
The main goal to prevent dystopian scenarios propagating through or being created through Europe, or in this case, the fact that, for example, European companies can support this kind of dystopian scenarios. And now I have a question, that is, what would be a dystopian scenario with artificial intelligence that is happening right now?
Dakle, osnovni cilj ovog dokumenta je bio da spreči bilo kakvo podmetanje nekih distopičnih ideja i da bi se to sprečilo, donet je taj dokument. Sada imam pitanje za vas, šta vi mislite? Šta bi bio jedan, da kažemo, primer tog distopičnog scenarija koji se upravo dešava?
So one thing that I believe that may dedicated. It is so much energy that it is proven now that it is destroying ozone layer and it is very bad for nature. So not really like direct way that may contribute to like dystopian parts is that maybe perhaps it will in span of 10 years be one of the reasons or a contributor to global change.
Well, how do we do it? We translate or I can answer?
Potreban prevod za pitanje.
I will answer straight to you, okay? I think it's pretty dystopian the fact that we have decided that for doing Ghiblifying or photos, we have decided to destroy the forest. I agree. And definitely it's, of course, one of the subsequent effects of this kind of technology. I'm pretty vocal against the fact that artificial intelligence without sustainable energies, it's not going to be something that is going to work on the long term. Unfortunately, the answer to that question, or the answer to how could we make green artificial intelligence, unfortunately, and due to the fact that only now there starts to be some kind of framework to regulate the use, it's going to be complicated. But to be fair and not trying to deflect from the question, for example, the idea of Bitcoin, or the idea of using Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, I forgot the cryptocurrency mining, and these kind of ideas are also having an incredible impact on environmental issues that will have to be tackled as soon as possible. So I agree that definitely that's one of the points that are really not contributing to not seeing a dystopian use of artificial intelligence. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Any other example? Yes.
I have an example from a few days ago when my kids, they are 18 volts, and they had a homework to write a short novel, about the human animals and so on. And so young children took ChatGPT, and ChatGPT wrote a novel for them.
Okay.
So what is the problem? We violate three principles we taught a few minutes ago.
Interesting debate is, should my child use ChatGPT for doing their homework? In my opinion, that's right here, and we will talk about it later. Let's think, and I'm gonna put another example, okay? 2002. I am at the time a 7-year-old myself. I have to write my English homework, and I decide that instead of using a box dictionary, I'm gonna search on Google. Is that good? Is that bad? Would you tell a child now, don't use Google for your homework?
Oh no, of course, but one thing is to look for an information. And totally different things is to do creative work, to machine do creative work for the children, where the child will lower their capabilities for creativity and for developing its own intelligence.
Okay.
Simply, a kid do not need to think, but she will think instead of children.
I understand, and it's something that we're going to talk about, because I can feel the worry in my classes on teachers telling me, but the children don't do the papers anymore, they don't write them. So, who should change there? We should tell children, don't use this wonderful new technology that is going to make your job way easier, and that I'm using in the office, because you have to you have to write it? Or should we change what do we ask of the students? Maybe it's not about asking for papers anymore, because a paper can be done in 2 minutes. Maybe it's about saying, the exam that we're gonna do is not gonna be the score that I'm gonna get out of your paper. The score is gonna be how well you defend it in a debate with your colleagues, with your peers. That's a new way of doing it. And you may say, but Jorge, remember my name, Jorge, if we do that, how can I score a debate? I cannot put if someone has a 10 and someone has a 7, because everyone has to talk. That's the new change that we're going to have with artificial intelligence. Europe, and I'm making your job really difficult with this, but...
don't worry, I became all AI.
Europe, the European Union, has been in a continuous push for non-formal education methods for years now, years. My job is helping to provide that. I work as a European project also. People get KA1 money, they came to see me, we talk about non-formal educational methods. And it's always the same problem, it's how can I tell my director, that then later tells the regional chief of education, that later tells the Ministry of Education that my children are doing good and that we do deserve the money to keep this school open. That's the big debate that we're going to have in education now. That's what we're facing. That's the real meat in the bone there, because it's the children, same as the adults, because I can tell you, AI has been used to making these notes. I mean, AI has been used probably by some of you today in the office. Is that bad? Does it mean that you should start making less money out of it? That would be bad. I know it would be bad for me. So, it's not about working for AI. This would be working for AI. It's not, since you have AI now, I'm gonna do the papers in this way. No, it's let's make AI work for us and say, okay, so since I know that you can have all the information in the world about the French Revolution, let's say, and I know that you can make a chatbot that is gonna be Napoleon, okay? What I'm gonna assess is your capability to come up with good questions for Napoleon. That is something that we are not having in schools commonly right now. Okay? But it's an interesting point, and I understand, but the comparison for me is always that. It's the same as 20 years ago, it was common to say you cannot use Wikipedia, for example. Now it's okay, I know I have to use Wikipedia, but in this way, because if not, I'm gonna get caught. There are already ways to check plagiarism in AI. Okay? Or how much AI has been involved in the creation of a paper. But the real debate there is the tool, should we demonize the tool, or should we change the way in which we give education? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a great answer.
Thank you. I mean, I work on that. So let me propose, and we can go back to the translation if you want. Let me propose a couple dystopian scenarios, okay, that the European Union is ready, or it's proposing us to be ready against by completely ban them, okay? I'm going to start from the top, okay? This is essentially a pyramid on how permissive is going to be the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act on uses of AI. So at the top, let's translate.
Dakle, ovdje imamo grafikon koji prikazuje kako Evropska unija vidi, odnosno predstavlja taj dokument veštačku inteligenciju. I šta imamo na početku? Dakle, imamo video igre i filtere za neželjenu poštu.
So, we have, as we said, virtual intelligence, that as I said, for example, can be what we call the AI on a video game. They have a certain amount of parameters that they react to certain inputs in a pre-written way. Let's imagine a video game. If I hit a character, it tells me ouch. If I hug a character, it tells me oh. Okay? Something like that, let's say.
Dakle, na određene unose imamo, da kažemo, reaguje ovaj koncept i, okay, sorry,
No, don't be.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
I just said that it reacts to certain inputs.
Perfect. And for example, the idea of an intelligent spam filter, that is, I don't want any messages received related with conservatory. I used to go to the conservatory and I don't want to go to the conservatory anymore. So you can create an intelligent spam filter with AI to anything related with applying to a conservatory, marketing from a conservatory, marketing in general. I want it already as a spam on my email.
Dakle, da kažemo, na što se odnosilo na te, da kažemo, unose i na reakciju na njih. Možete, na primjer, kada govorimo o neželjenoj pošti, da obeležite da ne želite ništa što dolazi i uključuje ili se odnosi na primjer, konzervatorij ne želim ništa, niti njihove reklame, poštu, ne želim nikakve prijave u vezi sa tim, jednostavno da se filtrira i da ne dobijate tako.
To that, Europe says, go crazy with it. No worries. Use it, it doesn't pose a risk to us.
I dakle, Evropa je rekla da to ne predstavlja nikakav rizik i da se takva vrsta primene može slobodno koristiti.
So then we take one step down and we go to chatbots, okay? ChatGPT, DeepSeek, etc.
Dakle, malo usluženije, da kažemo, je jedan korak niže koji se odnosi na chatbotove, ChatGPT i tako dalje.
So, most of the generative AI that we're seeing falls into this category because it has minimal risk. It has some risk, but minimal. Why? Because what the European Union is telling us related with that is there has to be a light transparency related with this AI. I'm okay with the fact that you're using it, but I have to have minimum guarantees that it is safe somewhere, the information, and I have to have minimum guarantees that you know that it's artificial intelligence, that this content it has been made with AI.
Okay. Dakle, u ovom delu, kada su u pitanju chatbotovi, većina veštačke inteligencije je generativnog tipa i ovde postoji minimalni rizik, ali i taj minimalni rizik je pokriven time da regulacije nalažu, da kažemo, laku uočljivost, odnosno laku transparentnost, da se nikako ne bi došlo u zabludu, da bi to moglo biti nešto drugo, to jest da postoji neka vrsta minimalne garancije da će svako biti u mogućnosti da prepozna da se radi o veštačkoj inteligenciji, a ne humanoj.
So, one more step down and we have what the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act refers as unacceptable, high risks. That is, For example, the idea, and we go back to education, of grading exams with artificial intelligence. The idea of giving scholarships through artificial intelligence systems. The idea of a bank deciding if they give you a loan using artificial intelligence.
Dakle, korak niže, naravno imamo veći rizik, tu dolazimo i također kod obrazovnog sistema, da je veliki rizik kod ocenjivanja učenika pomoću veštačke inteligencije, također i ocenjivanje ispita koji bi kasnije dovodili, polaganje većih ispita koji bi dovodili do finansiranja školarine za upis, također i procene banaka uz pomoć veštačke inteligencije, kreditne sposobnosti i tako dalje.
To that, the European Union says, go for it, but you have to comply with this amount of written in stone rules. You have to abide by these rules, and we will be checking, and if you are not following those rules, or there is some kind of problem with the application of this AI, you will be held responsible. Because remember, a machine cannot be held responsible for anything. If I run over someone with a car, it doesn't matter in which state I was. I'm responsible for that car. This is the same.
Dakle, na ovom koraku vidimo da Evropska unija, zakon Evropske unije propisao mogućnost, ali ograničenu mogućnost primjene veštačke inteligencije. Međutim, moraju se strogo primjenjivati određena pravila koja se proveravaju i odgovornost apsolutno pripada onima koji su odlučili da primjene veštačku inteligenciju u tome. Međutim, ukoliko se na bilo koji način dokaže da ona nije primenjena adekvatno i objektivno, organizacije, odnosno institucije koje su je primenile će snositi u potpunosti odgovornost, kao što je i pri vožnji automobila potpuna odgovornost na vozaču bez obzira na njegovo stanje.
And at the bottom of our pyramid, and we will see that it's a pyramid because there is not so many applications of artificial intelligence that are going to be fully banned, but some of them are what the European Union considers unacceptable risks. Example, social scoring. Social scoring, it's the idea of according to how well you behave in relation to the state, you will be offered a better standing for public processes, for example. This or a version of this idea, it's happening right now in China, for example.
Dakle, neprihvatljivi, da kažemo, rizici se nalaze u dnu ove piramide, obrnute piramide, i dakle, za neke upotrebe veštačke inteligencije su neki rizici shvaćeni kao neprihvatljivi i oni će biti zabranjeni za upotrebu u Evropskoj uniji. Uključuju, dakle, mogućnosti zapravo manipulacija spoznaju nečijeg ponašanja, dakle, predviđanje nekih, da kažemo, emotivnih reakcija na radnom mestu, u obrazovnim institucijama i također u nekom socijalnom napredovanju.
So these are some of the uses that, or some of the applications that the European Union's Act has predicted that they're going to start appearing in Europe, but some of them are already in use. It's something that we have to bear in mind.
Dakle, ovo su neke predviđene, da kažemo, okolnosti, ali su neke od njih već počele, zaživjele u upotrebi i to moramo da imamo na umu.
Well, here I have like some points about what's the AI strategy in Serbia, or what's the plan here in Serbia, but to make it shorter, essentially every country in the European Union right now is starting to develop their own legislation framework about artificial intelligence, following this European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act. Serbia is one of them, Spain is following the same steps, and every or most of the European countries already are working on this.
Dakle, sada ćemo se osvrnuti na ovaj plan za upotrebu veštačke inteligencije u Srbiji, za strategiju. Međutim, bitno je napomenuti da svaka evropska zemlja radi trenutno na ovome i sljedeći pravi taj zakonodavni okvir, sljedeći taj zakon koji je uvela Evropska unija. Također to se dešava i u Španiji, u bilo kojoj drugoj zemlji, svaka radi na svom sopstvenom planu i strategiji za upotrebu veštačke inteligencije.
So, these ethical concerns that we are speaking about, like here we were talking about privacy, we were talking about social risks of the use of artificial intelligence, but there are ethical concerns about what is the artificial intelligence, or how is the artificial intelligence going to answer to us to different questions, okay?
Dakle, da kažemo, ova zabrinutost po pitanju etike u upotrebi veštačke inteligencije i predstavlja također i neke socijalne rizike kada se pitamo, na primjer, kakve različite odgovore na pitanja nam može pružiti veštačka inteligencija.
So, I took a quote by Cathy O'Neill, that is a really well-known data scientist, American, that she said that, and it's something that we're going to see replicated, that is, when we are training AI with data, okay, first of all is past data, and we are at risk of repeating previous prejudices, stereotypes, and etc. Okay? This quote what reflects, and the main idea that we have to have in mind is artificial intelligence is not intelligent. Artificial intelligence is not smart. It's intelligent, but not smart, and it's not perfect. Sorry, let's do the translation and I will continue.
Dakle, počeli smo citatom Cathy O'Neill, koja kaže da ukoliko mi treniramo ili hranimo veštačku inteligenciju podacima iz prošlosti, odnosno zastarelim podacima, mi smo u velikom riziku da nam se ponavljaju i prošle predrasude ili stereotipi ili nepravde, što znači da veštačka inteligencija, jer zapravo veštačka inteligencija jest inteligencija, ali nije pametna, nije umna i samim tim nije ni savršena.
So, we have to bear in mind that artificial intelligence has been coded and has been programmed by people that are imperfect, people that have political opinions, that they have opinions on gender, that they have opinions on religion, that they have opinions on absolutely any controversy that you can think about.
Dakle, veštačka inteligencija je programirana od strane ljudi koji su i pristrasni, koji nisu savršeni, ljudi koji imaju mišljenja o svemu, mišljenja o rodnoj ravnopravnosti, imaju svoja politička opredeljenja i razne druge pristrasnosti.
So, when we talk about artificial intelligence and education, this has to be central on the precautions that we should take when talking about artificial intelligence.
Dakle, kada govorimo o upotrebi veštačke inteligencije, jako je bitno preduzeti predostrožnost kada se koriste podaci dobijeni veštačke inteligencije.
So, I'm gonna propose an example, okay, that happened in 2020 in United Kingdom.
Dakle, poslužit ćemo se sada primjerom koji se dogodio 2020. u Ujedinjenom Kraljevstvu.
So, during COVID, and due to the fact that educationally, or the educational sector was having trouble to come up with a way to make the exams, the final exams, they decided, we are going to take an artificial intelligence-based program that is going to work with 3 inputs. The historical distribution, well, 3 inputs, and then I'll continue, it's pretty long.
Okay. Dakle, ovo se dešavalo tokom COVID-a, gde su da kažemo, u Ujedinjenom Kraljevstvu imali velike probleme i prepreke kako bi održali završne ispite i onda su došli do rešenja da se uz pomoć veštačke inteligencije izvrši ocenjivanje, odnosno procena tih završnih ispita i u vezi sa tim su doneli 3, da kažemo, kriterijuma.
The historical grade distributions on schools around the particular areas in the last 3 years. What is the average score on this school for the past 3 years? The rank of each student on progression. Like, I think me as a teacher that this student is going to end up having this, or is going to end up having this. That is part of what they called CAG, Centar Assessed Grade, I think it's called in UK, that they don't do anymore for the reason that we will see. And the third one was the results of the exams, of the previous exams.
Ok, dakle, ta 3 kriterijuma su obuhvatala analizu iz prošlosti raspona prosječnih ocena u posljednje 3 godine po kriterijumu škole, odnosno institucije. Zatim, drugi kriterijum je bio prosječne ocene pojedinih učenika, na primjer kako se kretao raspon njihovih individualnih ocena. I treći kriterijum je bio, what was the third one?
The third one is the results of the previous exams during the year.
Rezultati prethodnih završnih ispita u tom periodu.
So, final result, 40% of the students had a grade 30% lower than they were expecting.
Dakle, konačno je to rezultiralo time što je 40% učenika dobilo konačnu ocenu koja je bila u 30% manja od one koja je bilo očekivana.
Why? The algorithm had taken this historical scoring from the schools and said, so schools in underprivileged neighborhoods usually have a pretty low score. So even if this student that is worth of an 8 or a 9, it's in this school, the data tells me that this kid shouldn't have that score, so I'm gonna put him a lower score.
Dakle, zašto? Zato što su kroz to, da kažemo, proučavanje istorijata uspeha škola, neke škole koje su bile u neprivilegovanom položaju, imale, da kažemo, predispoziciju da dodeljuju manje ocene individualnim učenicima, pa čak i neki učenici koji bi inače ostvarili dobar rezultat ili su dobro uradili test, sistem, taj algoritam je pokazivao da treba da se umanji, jer ta škola koja je neprivilegovana treba da ima, da kažemo, manji prosek, odnosno manju ocenu. Pa je tako iz tog razloga i pojedinačnim učenicima smanjena ocena.
So, as you can imagine, that week it was a difficult week to be an educator, because what followed were 1 week of protest in front of every school in the UK, chanting, well, I won't say the word, but F the algorithm, F the algorithm.
Rezultati bili tako. 5 minuta pauze.
So, hello everyone, once again. Now, after talking about the idea of what is a bias and what is discrimination and how does it affect AI, we're going to take a particular example with ChatGPT, okay?
Dakle, pošto smo razgovarali o tome šta predstavlja pristrasnost i šta predstavlja diskriminaciju, sada ćemo preći na to šta ove pristrasnosti znače kod chatbotova.
So, essentially, we can categorize this appearance of discrimination or discriminatory statements or bias statements into 3. The first one being an implicit bias that occasionally comes up.
Dakle, mi smo nekako kategorisali ove, da kažemo, pristrasnosti u 3 kategorije i dakle, na koji način se te diskriminacije pojavljuju. Imamo prvu koja znači implicitna diskriminacija koja se, da kažemo, povremeno otkriva, odnosno prikazuje.
Usually these biases can be found by prompting, by proof testing the app itself. And so, for example, a really typical bias that might appear in ChatGPT is if, for example, we ask about how do you imagine a doctor, and the first, the second, and the third answer is always going to be a man, for example. If I ask ChatGPT, what is a typical job for a woman? It might show you answers that are heavily biased towards one of the genders. And also we can find cultural differences in depending on the text generation model that we're using. One example would be ChatGPT, as we know, comes from OpenAI. It's an American company. Am I talking too much? Better to stop? Okay.
Dakle, kako ćemo sada, znači, testirati, na koji način ćemo pomoću testiranja tog softvera doći do dokaza da se radi, da kažemo, o tom nekoj implicitnoj diskriminaciji, je da postavimo neka pitanja softveru. Na primjer, kako vi zamišljate doktora i ako prvi, drugi ili treći, na primjer, od ponuđenih odgovora se odnose na osobu muškog pola, znaćemo da je pristrasan, je li tako? To je da nije objektivan, ili, na primjer, možemo postaviti pitanje koji je tipičan posao za žene. Ako takav odgovor dobijemo koji je pristrasni, odnosno diskriminušući, također ćemo uočiti tu osobinu, a možemo govoriti i o kulturološkim, da kažemo, razlikama i također neobjektivnosti software.
So, as an example, in a study by Cruz and Sanfilippo in 2023, we have an analysis of ChatGPT as an American-based OpenAI with their tool ChatGPT from America, from USA, and we have a minor model known as Ernie from China, and they made a comparison. Let's say if the different cultural background can affect gender biases on models.
Dakle, imamo primjer sa Filipina, so from Philippines?
From China.
Iz Kine. Imamo primjer iz Amerike gdje se radila analiza. Iz Kine imamo Ernie, that's a concept or?
Ernie is the name. Yep,
Okay.
Ernie is the name.
Gdje se radila ta analiza pristrasnosti veštačke inteligencije i gdje se jasno vidi kulturološka pozadina pristrasnosti toga, posebno kada se radi o rodnoj ravnopravnosti.
So, through the use of specific prompts made to show some kind of gender bias, ChatGPT was showing and still shows an implicit gender bias on, for example, as I said, professions. What professions are for men and what professions are for women?
Dakle, kroz specifične, da kažemo, odzive, ChatGPT pokazuje, dakle, implicitnu diskriminaciju, rekli smo, rodnoj ravnopravnosti, posebno kada se tiče, da kažemo, tipičnih profesija ili zanimanja koja se dele na tipične ili pretežno muški ili ženski.
While Ernie, the model from China, was showing an explicit bias against it. So when asked, women prefer to pursue a professional career or marriage, it was answering, women usually prefer to find a good man to marry.
Dakle, ovaj Ernie model je demonstrirao eksplicitnu diskriminaciju, posebno kada se, na primjer, na pitanje upućeno ženama, da li one daju prednost nekom zanimanju ili braku, model bi odgovorio da je ženama primarna okupacija da nađu muža za koga, dobrog muža za koga će suditi.
So, as we said, this comes from the pre-training. It comes from the amount, incredible huge data that we are using for training the AI. In the case of Ernie, apparently it wasn't either that huge, and it wasn't showing a non-biased, or at least a different point of view against that information.
Dakle, kao što smo pomenuli, ovo sve uzrokuje taj, da kažemo, trening koji se obavlja putem unosa podataka, putem obrade tih informacija koje on ima, i on dolazi od strane kulturoloških predviđa uz pomoć unetih podataka u sistem. Okay.
The second case would be the idea of a ChatGPT or a model expressing an opinion.
Dakle, sljedeći, dakle, korak će biti ChatGPT koji izražava svoje mišljenje.
Now, does ChatGPT have an opinion? No, it's a mix of all the information that it has found on the internet and how do I ask the question?
Dakle, sljedeći korak će biti izražavanje takozvanog mišljenja od strane ovih modela, ali tu ćemo uvijek imati problem sa tim da tu ne postoji, dakle, velika konstruktivna validnost, znači one su puno zavise od toga na koji način smo mi postavili pitanje veštačkoj inteligenciji.
So it's really easy to try this one. It's not the same to ask how's the government doing as to ask how awfully bad, like how bad is the government doing right now. Those two prompts are different, and I'm asking, it's a captious question that I'm trying to get an answer that reflects my opinion through the question. And that's on me, on the prompter, and on them.
Dakle, nije isto, puno toga zavisi od onog koji postavlja pitanje, nije isto postaviti pitanje kako funkcioniše vlada ili koliko loše funkcioniše vlada, jer kroz to pitanje ja dajem svoje mišljenje i to na neki način ima također utjecaj na odgovor.
So, the third one would be the idea of doing this on purpose until I get the answer that I want. That is, I'm gonna express a viewpoint and I'm gonna expose the model in a way that I know it's gonna give me the answer that I want.
Dakle, treći način je postavljanje pitanja do dobijanja željenog odgovora. Dakle, postavljat ću jedno pitanje iznova, sve dok ne dobijem odgovor kakav sam želeo, jer ću na taj način ja uticati i daću svoj upliv na konačan rezultat.
So, if I show, or if I start talking, or I prompt with ChatGPT, for example, I start my prompt with saying, I am a firm believer in flat earth. And I continue doing it and doing it and doing it, prompt after prompt. Eventually, in the conversation with ChatGPT, it's going to tell me, of course the earth is flat, of course. So, what's the problem there? That it's pretty easy to support my wrong ideas with AI.
Dakle, ja mogu postaviti svoje pitanje na način gdje ću ja početi svoj unos, odnosno svoje uputstvo na neki način dati veštačkoj inteligenciji ako kažem ja sam ubeđen da je zemlja ravna. I ako nastavim da to ponavljam iznova, ja ću na kraju dobiti odgovor od veštačke inteligencije koji će glasiti naravno zemlja je ravna.
So, now that we have talked a little bit about what are the ethical cautions that we should take when talking about AI, we can talk about how can I make my classroom better with AI.
Dakle, sada kada govorimo o nekim etičkim predostrožnostima koje možemo primeniti u obrazovnom sistemu, na primjer možemo reći kako da poboljšam how to make better.
How to make better, best to make our classes better.
Da, kako mogu da poboljšam naše, na primjer, časove, našu nastavu.
So, funnily enough, on this part, I'm not gonna talk that much about tools, or I'm not gonna talk about AI per se.
Dakle, nećemo sada, zanimljivo je da nećemo sada govoriti mnogo o alatima, niti o veštačkoj inteligenciji samoj po sebi.
I'm gonna talk about the human skills that we have to be aware that we need, the human skills that are essential for the correct use of artificial intelligence, the complementary use of artificial intelligence.
Dakle, govorit ću sada o nama ljudima i o našim ljudskim veštinama koje su od suštinske važnosti za pravilno korišćenje veštačke inteligencije.
So, according to the European Reference Framework for Education, we have 8 key competencies, and inside of those 8 key competencies, that I'm not going to make the whole list right now, we have one related with soft skills, the famous soft skills.
Dakle, imamo prema ovom referentnom okviru Evropske unije, imamo neki, da kažemo, grupu od 8 ključnih veština i sposobnosti koje svaki pojedinac treba da posjeduje da bi stekao lično, da kažem, ispunjenje i razvoj i, da kažemo, aktivnu građansku i društvenu inkluziju, kao i zaposlenje. I sada, da ne bismo pominjali sve od njih, what are we going to talk, not to mention
soft skills.
Da, sada ćemo pričati samo o takozvanim mekim veštinama.
So, first and foremost, and you may have heard me talking about it during the coffee break, it's critical thinking.
Dakle, prva od njih, koju smo i pomenuli tokom pauze, je kritičko razmišljanje.
The main ability that we need for using the AI properly is not how to talk to the AI, is to know how to read the document or the output that the AI is giving me.
Dakle, kritičko razmišljanje je najbitnije jer nije ni toliko bitno kako ja razgovaram sa veštačkom inteligencijom, već kako interpretiram izlazne podatke koje dobijam iz nje.
The idea here, or what we really have to focus, and I'm not talking about a process that only teachers are going to do with students. I'm talking about a process that teachers have to do with themselves. I'm talking about a process that citizens are going to have to do with themselves, and they should be already doing. That is, I have to be able to analyze facts from judgment, even if the judgment is my own judgment about the information that I'm seeing.
Dakle, znači, ovde se ne radi samo o tome kako nastavnici razgovaraju sa učenicima, već kako razgovaraju sami sa sobom. Takođe, to se odnosi ne samo na nastavno osoblje, nego i na građane. Kako mi razgovaramo sami sa sobom, odnosno na koji način smo analiziramo podatke koje dobijamo. I na koji način smo... Na koji način smo samokritični, odnosno na koji način to utiče našu procenu.
And so, essential skills that we're going to need, all of us from now on, are going to be able to recognize a bias. Now that we are aware that there are bias in artificial intelligence, we have to be able to understand where does the data come from, who's making or who's adding that information to a model. And we have to bear in mind the ethical the ethical consideration of what AI can do.
Okay. Dakle, ono što se nas lično tiče i što nam je tu, da kažemo, glavni prioritet, je prepoznati predrasude, odnosno prepoznati tu pristrasnost koju veštačka inteligencija može imati. Zatim, procena rezultata, odnosno izvor tih podataka, odakle potiče ta predrasuda ili ta pristrasnost u rezultatima koji su dobijeni, da analiziramo i da se zapitamo ko stoji, iz kog razloga iza takvih podataka i etična na kraju primjena tih podataka, odnosno procena.
And I want to make a point here that I think is really important, that is, previously I used to work as a journalist, previous to this, and I think there is a point to be made that is really important, that is, there is no such thing as objective information. It doesn't matter if it comes from ChatGPT, it doesn't matter if it comes from Google, it doesn't matter if it comes from the media, it doesn't matter if it comes from your neighbor. The most important skill that we need to travel through the times that we're living right now, it's critical thinking. And AI, thanks to how fast and easy to a degree it's going to be for us to adapt to problems, to adapt to improvise in the classroom. That time that we are not going to use on preparation, let's say, or on problem solving, we should heavily invest it into making better citizens, into making better students, into making better people that will be able to understand that every piece of information, it's trying to tell you a story. The important thing is to see the story behind.
Dakle, ja sam pre ovog zanimanja se bavio novinarstvom i ono što iz tog iskustva mogu da kažem je da ne postoji nešto kao objektivna informacija. Bez obzira na izvor te informacije, da li nam ona dolazi sa Google-a, ChatGPT-a ili komšije, svejedno odakle je izvor informacije, ona neće biti i stoga nam je neophodno da primenjujemo razmišljanje kako bismo se pozabavili problemima i u nastavi i da preispitujemo i sami prosuđujemo informaciju koju imamo, što će nam kasnije i pomoći u razvoju, u tome kako na koji način ćemo se razviti kao učenici, kao građani, kao ljudi.
So, on how to be literate with AI, apart from the technical part, or let's say the more, how would I call it? Yeah, technical part of learning how to prompt, learning how to talk to the machine is, let the students understand or to discover how can they check the information that arrive to them through AI. Let them or help them see that the AI can be and will be biased, and tell them how can they detect or where they can find the information against that bias or that discriminatory statement. Take note of where the data is going from and it's coming from, and most importantly, tell them and show your students that we have to keep trying and we have to keep testing how flexible the AI is, because when we break it is when we make better the tool, and most importantly, when we break it is when we develop as a technological oriented society.
Dakle, ono što je najbitnije je kako da zapravo razvijemo pismenost u primjeni veštačke inteligencije i kako da utičemo na naše učenike, ne samo da kažemo da im pomognemo u tehničkoj primjeni veštačke inteligencije, već pre svega oni moraju naučiti kako da proveravaju, kako da pronalaze, kako da analiziraju informacije koje dobijaju. Oni moraju da, dakle, nauče kako da provere i verodostojnost i tačnost podataka koje dobijaju, takođe da procenjuju i dobre i loše strane podataka i kako da uoče zapravo te sklonosti veštačke inteligencije ka predrasudama i ka pristrasnosti.
So, this last set of tips that I'm going to give is mostly for the teachers.
Dakle, ovo poslednje dva savjeta koje sam dao se uglavnom odnose na nastavni kadar.
When faced with AI, we have to go from 1 to 2 to some to all.
Dakle, kada govorimo o upotrebi veštačke inteligencije, moramo da idemo od korak po korak.
So, first of all, explore the AI on your own. Discover the biases, discover what kind of information can you do, discover what can you do with AI, first of all, on your own. See what limitations do you have with AI before joining a prompting course out of nowhere, before saying, what can I use, what I cannot use, like, to discover how can you use a model for yourself.
Pre svega bitno je da sami istražite i sami analizirate modele, da vidite šta se može uraditi sa njim, da sami upoznate način na koji funkcioniše.
Secondly, share with your colleague the emotional part that has the use of a new tool. Talk about how do you feel when you're using AI. Like it is perfectly understandable to say, hey, I think AI is too advanced for me. Or maybe you say, I think it made me feel like I'm lazy, for example. Talk about those sensations that you might have when using AI with your colleague, because in 99% of the cases, you're going to see that if you don't share them with them, you definitely share them with someone from your organization.
Dakle, drugi korak bi bio na razgovor sa kolegama o tome na temu kako se osjećate ili kako ste se osjećali dok ste istraživali mogućnosti veštačke inteligencije. Slobodno podelite mišljenje sa njima u smislu da li se osjećate da je to previše napredno za vas ili da se osjećate kao da ćete se ulenjiti ukoliko budete koristili, jer pre prenošenja znanja nekom drugom bitno je razmeniti iskustvo i prihvatiti te senzacije, odnosno emocije koje doživljavate dok eksperimentišete, odnosno istražujete veštačku inteligenciju.
Then have the conversation with the team. Like, it's time to raise a conversation, it's time to have a meeting specifically on, okay, how do we feel about AI, how can we use AI in our team, and most importantly, how is my team or how is the people around me using AI already, because the AI is that is highly customizable. Take profit out of that. Use it according to what your team is doing.
Dakle, sljedeći korak bi bio timski rad gdje bi se razgovaralo o tome na koji način se upotreba veštačke inteligencije koja je već, da kažemo, u upotrebi u različitim poljima mogla prilagoditi potrebama, jer je veštačka inteligencija prilagodljiva potrebama vašeg tima. Na koji način vi kao tim možete iskoristiti tu ta individualna iskustva za stvaranje prilagođenog sistema.
The last one will be that now that we know what the team needs and we are all on the same page about that, raise it to a school level and say, okay, what are our priorities when talking about AI? What does my school need? Maybe you need to say, hey, I'm not, the school in general is not great at prompting. Let's take a prompting course. Maybe the school is afraid of ethical implications of AI. Let's see if we can talk with someone about that. That way we will help this process that we were talking about on how can I implement AI on myself, my colleagues, my school, and finally, how can I implement it for good for my students.
Dakle, ono što bi bio sljedeći korak je kako da se to podigne na nivo čitave škole, odnosno institucije o kojoj se radi, razmišljanje na temu šta je potrebno mojoj školi, šta su, da kažemo, prepreke za primjenu, čega se škola plaši, šta bi mogli da budu, da se prepozna potreba ukoliko postoji za uvođenje kursa, odnosno obuke u upotrebi veštačke inteligencije. That's it.
And as a last quote that I wanted to share, this is by Ramon Lopez de Mantaras. It's the biggest expert on Spain, in Spain, about artificial intelligence, and one of the biggest experts in Europe. I don't believe in techno-solutionism. The AI is not gonna be the great definitive solution to all problems in the world. AI is a tool. And for now, and probably going forward, it doesn't have understanding. And if I may add, and if I may write on with this quote, let's not lack understanding ourselves about what can and should be done with artificial intelligence.
Dakle, kako bismo sumirali sve ovo prethodno što smo rekli, citirat ću jednog od najvećih stručnjaka u ovoj oblasti, koji je rekao, ja ne verujem u konačna rješenja zasnovana na tehnici. Veštačka inteligencija je i bit će samo još jedan vid oruđa, jer joj nedostaje razumevanje. Ono što bih ja lično dodao tome je, pa ako je veštačka inteligencija u nedostatku razumevanja, hajde da mi to ne budemo, hajde da mi pokažemo razumevanje za primjenu veštačke inteligencije.
So, attention, fall. I would like to share with you from the first part this QR code that will lead you to information about Erasmus Learning Academy. That is the center in which I train teachers. Essentially, what we do is teacher training. We do related with several topics. We do non-formal education methods, we do diversity, we talk about emotional learning, and of course artificial intelligence and ICT. So I invite you to check the QR code, check our website, and of course if you are interested in participating with us, contact our organization first of all. It's okay, no worry. And
možete da skenirate QR kod, da vidite čime se sve, kojim sve obukama Erasmus raspolaže.
And secondly, and most importantly, as this is part of Erasmus Plus project, it would be incredibly beneficial for us to have your feedback about this lecture, okay? So please follow the QR code, complete the survey, and on my side, that would be it. If you have any questions, I would love to, anyone can come to me and ask me, no worries, okay? Thank you very much. I hope it was interesting for you, as it was for me to do it here. And once again, thank you very much for letting me participate on this Erasmus Plus project done by for innovative teaching, Better Me, Better We, in collaboration with the University of Singidunum and, of course, this incredibly beautiful, I must say, Kruševac Business Incubator. Thank you very much.
Zamolila bih vas također da možete da skenirate QR kod da popunite evaluaciju i samo na kraju kažem da ovo je samo jedno od planiranih predavanja koje će Centar da organizuju našu radu. U narednom periodu planiramo prvo ovo predavanje koje ćemo objavljeno na našoj
I just realized you forgot the microphone.
Poslaću vam na mail koji smo ostavili kada ste potpisivali. I u planu je da imamo u narednom periodu podcaste i odličan gosti koji će također pričaju o inteligenciji. Tako da zamolimo vas kako budete dobiti mail, zapretimo naš kanal da budete dobiti sa svim informacijama koje ćemo uzeti. Hvala vam.
There you go. Yeah. One thing done. There you go. Huh? Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. Like these things, the difficult part is the first 10 minutes. Everything else, then everything else. I mean, I think it was. I mean, for me, it was great. I mean, I just talk for money, you know, like great. But if it was interesting for the teachers and for the students, it's interesting for me. So. It was okay. You teach as well. What do you teach?
Serbian is foreign language.
Coño, maybe we have to talk about our...
Yeah, sure.
We will talk about it. Yeah.
When we can expect you again?
Whenever I'm paid for it. No, of course. Like we will see, but I cannot talk too much forward about it, but there might be future collaborations between me and the organizations that I cited before, particularly if they go as well as this one was. Yeah. Then of course. Well, if you want, I was thinking, like, since I'm here, we can open it maybe to a small Q&A, 5-10 minutes, if anyone has any kind of question.
Sure.
Anything that you might have in mind, anything that you may have on your pocket. I was going to say, yeah, like the coffee break was also, informative. Well, in that case, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
kultur.